咁我哋就好快召開今日嘅會議。咁就今日就係第二堂。
Morning, members. This is the second meeting with us for this item. Ms. Chen, Assistant Secretary from the THB. Mr. Chan from the Marine Department. Mr. Leung, also from the Marine Department. Ms. Lam, Senior Assistant Law Draftsman. Mr. Feng Chongyi, Senior Surveyor of Ships Marine Policy, Marine Department. All right, we have two letters made available to us by the administration in response to the questions raised during the last meeting. The first one is whether there is any trawl net near the coral reef. I've never dived into the water, and I don't think I can find out for myself, but we can certainly follow up on this. The other letter is in response to Mr. Albert CHAN in relation to the LAPSAP-1 in SECO, the accumulation of refuse there. Perhaps I'd like to call upon Ms. Chan or the Marine Department, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Chan, for the comments regarding the rubbish or refuse accumulation at LAPSAP-1. We have the Marine Department conducted some site visits. The situation is, on the whole, satisfactory. The refuse is building up on the rocks above the tidal line. Mostly, this is polystyrene foam, and this rubbish accumulates over the years. From our observation, the rubbish didn't originate from vessels, and mainly they originated from land-based sources. When dealing with marine refuse or vessel refuse from the vessels, we do provide free of charge collection services from the vessels. Each year we collect something like 4,300 tons per year from the vessels. As regards floating refuse at sea, we have a team of 70 vessels of different types to perform marine scavenging service on a daily basis. And at foreshore shallow waters where there are no vessels, we do have the foreshore cleaning or cleansing teams. We have sampans cleaning up the foreshore areas. I think it is important to start at source, and we have to mount some education to make sure that refuse will not find its way into the sea. The Marine Department has been conducting publicity and education activities, like before the moratorium and before the Lunar New Year. When the fishing vessels come back to Hong Kong, we will have meetings with the fisher folk to remind them of the importance of keeping the typhoon shelters clean while they are berthing in Hong Kong. We do also visit the fish markets on a regular basis, the marine culture zones, the Marine or the Fishermen Association to hammer home the message. It is important to clean up the refuse. Other than daily patrol, we will summon anybody who is chucking refuse into the sea. In fact, at the waterfront where there are more people, we do mount special operation during holidays. If we spot anybody chucking rubbish into the sea, then we will summon them. 22 fixed penalty tickets have been used over the past 3 years for littering. This is the current state of play regarding marine refuse. All right, who's going to put questions? Mr. Albert CHAN. I don't impose any time limit. Mr. Albert CHAN. Madam Chair, I've been following up on this issue for more than a decade. I've been writing to the administration on numerous occasions. Maybe the administration doesn't get to grips with the problem. I've been living on the islands for so many years. Whenever we go to the beach with the kids, I feel really heartbroken and I feel so outraged because the vessels from the refuse from the vessels is so horrendous. I've even seen condoms, not to mention the orange peels and vermicelli wrappings. You look at the floating refuse, you can confidently say that 80% of them come from the vessels. Over the years, I've been cleaning up the refuse together with the green groups on the beaches. I've been to Jimawan, I've been to Lapsap. It is not accumulation for so many years. Whenever I write to them, they would clean up. Every 3 months, we visit Jimawan, Lantau, and every 3 months, the rubbish will be building up Tai Long Wan, Jimawan, Lamma, the whole southern part of Lantau Island, Lamma, southern part of Hong Kong Island. The refuse is building up every single day. I mean, don't tell us that it's been building up over the years. Step one, this is not the first complaint that you've received. Madam Chair, I have been negotiating with the administration for so long. There are many vessels that I mentioned last time. If you look at the Victoria Harbour and you see the tiny little boats scooping up the refuse at sea. Hong Kong is a cosmopolitan city. I know that there is a cost element. You see the tiny little boat, and they are scooping up the refuse, and a lot of the tiny little pieces of rubbish cannot be picked up by the scoop. I asked them whether they have this specialized vessel that they can scoop up with a mechanical scoop in front. Now the operator is a Ping Chau resident. I asked him whether they're going to be modernizing the vessel that is scavenging refuse. If you come from New York or elsewhere, then they may think that Hong Kong is being nostalgic and we don't move on with times. I think you have to invest in some modernized vessels to scoop up the refuse at sea. I visited Europe many years ago, and they have this mechanized vessel with a excavator like device to scoop up the refuse at sea. The bloke who scoop up the refuse at sea can find himself in dangerous situation, and I hope that on Lamma, Lantau, the green groups would like to talk to the subcommittee. If you look at the administration's reply, page 3, English version.
Marine Department will take enforcement action against marine littering offenders when they perform their daily routine duties. They will also conduct special anti-marine littering operation during non-office hours. But
if you look at the situation over the years, what we saw on the beach, what we saw on the foreshore, there are so many syringes lying all over the place. I'm sure that when the vessels come into Hong Kong, they are worried about being caught, and they chuck the syringes into the sea. Every time we go pick up rubbish on the beaches. I can pick up dozens of these syringes. How many prosecutions have you conducted? I'm not talking about the pleasure craft in Hong Kong, nor the fishing vessels. Over the past 3 years, how many vessels have you prosecuted for littering? Madam Chair, I hope that there will be a public hearing so that we can hear the deputations for them to talk about their displeasure with marine refuse. Any questions for the officials, Mr. Chan? How are they going to make sure that the legislation can be enforced? Now, we were scrutinizing the bill. Mr. Chan, I didn't stop you. I let you ventilate your views for 5 minutes. Let me preside over the meeting. In this kind of subcommittee, it is important for members to put questions and to get hold of information. And it is good to relate the views from outside. But do you have any questions for the officials? If not, then I move on. Madam Chair, I put 2 questions. How many prosecutions over the past 3 years? Second, do they have the resources and ability to enforce the law? Mr. Frankie Yik, perhaps you might wish to wait. Let the officials have the floor. Madam Chair, within Hong Kong waters, we invoke the Summary Offences Ordinance, Section 4D, to prosecute littering at sea. Of course, we can also resort to a fixed penalty to summons to penalize people. Mainly, we used a fixed penalty instead of this particular ordinance. Madam Chair, this legislation is intended to implement the international convention. Mainly, the ocean-going vessels have a long voyage. In the process of operation, they may generate different waste, like food waste, and also the cargo residue arising from the vessel operation. I think Mr. Chan is more concerned about the refuse or the litter arising from the local vessels and the passengers. That's why Mr. Cheng is saying that we're not invoking this particular legislation for prosecution. I must explain that this time we are implementing the international convention, and also we're dealing with the refuse arising from the operation. Now, the second question from Mr. Chen, how are you going to enforce the legislation? When you enforce the legislation, how many vessels will be deployed for patrol to make sure that there will not be any refuse being disposed of? Ms. Chen, I think Mr. Chen is talking about the local waters. What legislation is invoked is not the key issue. It's more like the effectiveness. In 2012, the ENB set up an interdepartmental working group to enhance the cooperation between departments in dealing with the marine refuse. Marine Department is one of the members. This committee will look at the sources of the refuse and see what measures can be taken or formulated to minimize the problem. I understand that this committee published a report recently, a study report, which pointed out that the marine refuse, 80% of them come from a land-based source, and vessels represent a small percentage in terms of sources. Now, this is the work undertaken by another bureau. I don't think I can go into minute detail about it. This is an issue involving different departments. Marine Department is one of them. It is coordinated by the ENB. I wonder whether this is the right forum to follow up on this particular issue.
Well, But now that there is such information, I would hope that you would forward such information to this subcommittee. Yes, Mr. Yip. Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think Mr. Chan's concern is directly relevant to the concern of the business of this subcommittee. I have some experience running ferries, and in the past 20 years, I would say that there's been a reduction of floating waste. But I would agree with Mr. Chan that that there is a problem. Yes, indeed. The science of collecting floating waste has made tremendous advances. We are even able to clean up the moon. So there is new technology available. So I think we should consider seeking the help of tertiary institutions to design for us better equipment to deal with this problem. Is there any thinking on the part of the department on funding such enterprises instead of having a few persons scooping up floating waste? Well, in this regard, it is true that that in the Victoria Harbour, we do have individuals taking care of floating waste, but there is a diversity of methods with vessels and so on trying to tackle this job. Well, when it comes to BC waterways, we do have mechanical excavator vessels. Now, this is applicable to the collection of substantive refuse, including dumped furniture, refrigerators, and so on. Now, these are much bigger floating devices would also facilitate these small vessels in collecting what they have collected. So we do have such a mechanism. Now, regarding what's happening in Victoria Harbour, yes, manual cleaning up is still going on. We believe that this is, under the circumstances, such so-called primitive methods tend to be more effective given the conditions of the harbour. Now, actually, floating refuge tends to accumulate on shallow waters, and if we deploy large vessels, I think there might create other sets of problems, as well as causing hazard to other vessels. So when we issue contracts to clean up our waters, we are open to various methodologies and we go for the most effective way. Of course, there is room for improvement. There's a reference to residents at Ping Chau. Now, I don't know who these persons are. Actually, as far as we know, actually, in operation already are vessels of a very light nature, deploying mechanical excavating mechanism, and we are looking at it constantly to see how we can improve the cleaning up operation. As of now, we are of the view that over in Victoria Harbour, the small vessels using manual operation remains an effective way, because the amount of refuse collected through such manual operation amounts to very substantive level. I think the officer is a bit too defensive. I appreciate that there is a safety factor. Of course, we understand that for substantive, large pieces of waste, yes, there are other methods dealing with it. But over in Victoria Harbour, all we see are small boats operating manually. But actually, there are other ways, small, for instance, like intensive farming, even in rice planting, we have very small machines which do not pose any hazard to farmers and to the environment, which are ingenious in doing this intensive job. Yes, we will give due consideration to your suggestion. But actually, I would advise that you all kinds of new methods are available. You simply Google. You Google. You go into the computer, the internet, and you'll find many ways of dealing with waste. Okay, Mr. Sin. Now, this is a subcommittee on the subsidiary legislation. It is very clear that Mr. Chan has submitted a query, and I think roughly we know what the issues are. Now, since there is such a concern, I would suggest that the administration submit a paper which would answer all our concerns instead of simply bundling ideas here and there through and impromptu oral response. So we hope that you would give us a paper so that we can work on it. I hope that you'll give us more information about the vessel, the fleet of vessels which clean up our harbor. Of course, manual operation has its assets. It creates jobs and so on. But I think times are different, and we should be developing new ways of doing our job. Now, apart from floating refuse, I think we should also be concerned about the pollution by garbage in our waterbeds. Now, I'm not talking about waste, garbage on the beaches, but I'm talking about shallow water on our beaches. And on the one hand, we should be concerned about the pollution by garbage dumped by ships. But we should also be concerned about beaches, on the beaches as well as under the water. Yes, let's do clean up our waters. We hope that through legislation we will be able to do an effective job on the shore, on on the water as well as on the waterbed. I think we should be result-oriented. I want to ask the administration how we can achieve this purpose. Of course, we need to honor international obligations. That is one thing. Well, I think we are here to implement an international regulation. This motion has come from the Transport and Housing Bureau because this has to do with an international obligation. So this is the work of the Bureau regarding keeping our harbor and our waters clean. Now, this is the responsibility of the Environment Bureau. And that's why there is an interdepartmental working group for this purpose. Of course, cleaning up waters is an important, but it is something that has to do with the environment. So when it comes to implementation, I think yes, it seems that we do need to seek the view and the input of the Environment Bureau. Now, of course, the police is responsible for the enforcement and for security. It seems that another meeting is called for, and we would need to seek the help of a number of bureaus. Of course, now we are dealing with a piece of legislation which seeks to honor international obligations. Of course, we have to ask questions about enforcement. I hope that the Bureau would coordinate with other departments and bureaus. Of course, honoring an international obligation is a means, but what's the end? The end is to arrive at our ultimate goal, and that is our clean environment. This has to do with a regulation governing merchant shipping, the prevention of pollution by garbage. Now, because we have these big ocean-going vessels dumping waste in our waters, and this piece of regulation, as Mr. Chang has told us, that we have a fleet of vessels up to 70, and these vessels constantly patrol and enforce the regulations. There is a passing mark of 7, so such a score fails to be achieved, then something has to happen. But up to now, our scorecard shows an 8.3 score, and so this is we have done a reasonable job. So I think we need to pause here, and yes, I think we're all concerned about the health of our harbor environment. And I think we all want to honor international obligations regarding this piece of regulation. I think it is right as legislators that we be concerned about enforcement. I would like to provide some options for your consideration.
I understand that this subcommittee is to look at the subsidiary legislation to implement the international convention. Now, in connection with the floating refuse and refuse at the bottom of the sea, this is within the purview of the ENB, but the enforcement agency is the Marine Department. That's why we have the Marine Department representatives here, and they're here to explain the situation to members. Madam Chair, I am in my different capacity, Vice Chairman of the Environmental Panel. We are going to be discussing what the Secretary said, and that is the interdepartmental study on marine refuse. Now, this has not been put on the agenda yet, but the ENB will arrange a time for this to be discussed. Now, this is an option that members might consider. Should we follow up on the matter here, or should we, instead of here, follow up the matter at the Environment Affairs Panel, or should we open up to other members, and maybe I can offer my assistance for a public hearing to be held at the Environmental Affairs Panel, so that the green groups, the fisher folk, the residents near the foreshore can be invited. Now, we don't really want to see our waters being polluted or contaminated by these irresponsible acts. As regards the foreshore refuse, a year ago I liaised with the Marine Department officials, and none of them are here. I talked to them about the presence of microwave oven refrigerators at Aberdeen. Now, you are collecting the refuse free of charge from the vessels, and this is something that shouldn't be happening. So we have to trace the sources of these kind of refuse and take prosecution action. The Marine Department and the contractors ought to work hand in glove. I know that this is being farmed out, maybe because of the seasonal factor, the water current, the refuse may be swept ashore. And all these monitoring and all these steps have to be transparent, and the members of the public should have access to the information. So it is pretty complex kind of scenario. I don't think this subcommittee may be able to deal with every single aspect. Certainly we can start here, but I would suggest that we can have a more comprehensive handling at the Environmental Affairs Panel. Yes, I'm sure that all of us have the wisdom to deal with the issue. Let me tell members the schedule. I don't think officials should be shying away from meetings. Either you come here or go to the Environmental Affairs Panel. We are done with the clause-by-clause scrutiny because the legislation itself is pretty straightforward. Now we're dealing with the law enforcement. The officials are telling us that 80% of the floating refuse originate from land-based sources, and 20% come from the sea-based sources, and they have to do with this piece of legislation. The legal advisor, you might wish to tell us something about the subsidiary legislation. Now we can follow up on the issue at this subcommittee. Members may wish to refer to Clause 3 of the subsidiary legislation. It refers to the applicability. This legislation applies to the local vessels in the waters, and foreign vessels within Hong Kong waters, except the marine vessels and also the non-commercial vessels. But if you refer to 3.1, it states that all Hong Kong vessels anywhere else in the world and foreign vessels in local waters will be caught by this subsidiary legislation. Now, within Hong Kong waters, when refuse is spotted, I'm not sure what percentage comes from the vessels. There is a chance that some of the refuse originates from vessels that are in Hong Kong. They may not be Hong Kong vessels. They may not be Hong Kong vessels. So the within this scope, this piece of subsidiary legislation would apply. So that's my legal advice. Thank you. So this subcommittee can follow up on the matter, but indeed we do face a time constraint. Now this is going to go into effect on July 1st, and if we go beyond the time, it will go into effect on July 1st anyway. So before the 27th of May, what can be done? Madam Chair, thank you. Tomorrow, Madam Chair will be moving a motion to extend the scrutiny period. If this is passed, then the scrutiny period will be extended to the 3rd of June. Would there be any chance? Well, I did check about it, and there is not a good chance of this being moved at the council meeting, but we will go by this timetable anyway. The notification for amendment is May the 27th. Why not a good chance? Is it because we have to follow all the other businesses first? Well, we have to follow the appropriation bill. So members, please take note. This will come after the appropriation bill. The debate has not been completed, and there would not be a good chance of an extension of the scrutiny period. Now, perhaps I'll ask the Secretary to tell us if this cannot be extended, then can we convene a meeting in July? Well, there will not be any time limit. Vis-a-vis the deadline of the motion. So before July, before this goes into effect, we can still have further meetings. Let me put this to members. If we refer the matter to the Environmental Affairs Panel, it will be more comprehensive in our discussion, but the problem is we are not sure when this can be put on the agenda. I would suggest that this subcommittee pick up this issue. Any problems, any questions? We can follow up on this. Whether the law is passed is quite another matter. July 1st, we'll see this go into effect. There will not be any extension. They can choose not to join us for any further meetings. Now, Mr. Chen. Now, given the appropriation bill being handled at the moment, you cannot do this ahead of that, and the scrutiny will come to an end by the end of May and early June. It's a question of if the subcommittee is unhappy, now once the extension period has come and gone, can we move any motion to repeal the subsidiary legislation that has been extended? I know that this is going to be very extreme. This is unprecedented, and this is going to be a very aggressive move. I'd like to put this to the legal advisor, at least we have some ammunition in hand, and they cannot choose to ignore us. Can we have the option of repealing the subsidiary legislation? I don't think we have any chance of repealing it. That was the case with the baby formula business. We gone past the period and we couldn't do anything. Secretary, Madam Chair, if this cannot be extended, then we'll have to follow the original legislative timetable. And members can move amendment, and the deadline is May the 13th, and the notification period has come and gone May the 6th. So if you want to move an amendment or to repeal, I mean, that's the situation. And this will go into effect on July 1st. Madam Chan, at the last meeting, we completed the clause-by-clause scrutiny. I don't think Mr. Chan has any problems with the clauses. Rather, he's more concerned about the means and the measures to keep the Hong Kong waters clean. Well, sorry, Madam Chen, I think we have to correct what you think. Now, many times we are happy with the clauses, but with regard to the law enforcement or the subcommittees or the bills committees will deal with the relevant issues like I think you have to get your thinking right. Madam Chair, I understand your point. If this cannot be extended, there will not be any amendment moved. But if members would like to follow up on the enforcement issues, we will be only too delighted to attend the meetings. But it's a question of whether this will be followed up at this subcommittee or elsewhere. It's entirely your prerogative to decide. But the point I'm trying to say is that members don't have any problem with the subsidiary legislation itself. Well, I'll ask the Secretary to address Mr. Chen's question, or the legal advisor. If no extension is possible, and we're done with the clause by clause, and basically our task has been completed. Secretary, you might wish to tell us something about the rules of procedure and the restriction, the power conferred upon us. Madam Chair, thank you. Tomorrow, if Madam Chair cannot seek to extend the scrutiny period, then the subcommittee will be dissolved. So I would suggest that in terms of following up on the matter, whether we should do it under this subcommittee or under the Environmental Affairs Committee, perhaps we can talk with the chairman of the panel to see what forum would be better. Mr. Chen, I may not go along with that. Now, I understand that after the scrutiny period, we may not have the power to move anything, to say anything. But as the deadline has come and gone, it doesn't mean that the subcommittee would cease to exist. I don't think I can go along with what the Secretary said. If we feel that there is still outstanding business, every member is aware of that. Regarding the amendment, the deadline may have come and gone, but there are certain issues arising from the scrutiny, and if we still have outstanding businesses, I don't think the subcommittee would dissolve automatically with the deadline being passed. My view is that before the subsidiary legislation go into effect, we can follow up on the administrative issues, although we may not be able to move any amendments or seek to move a repeal motion. I have to make this abundantly clear. Mr. Chan is asking whether we can seek a motion to repeal in June. That is not possible. But before this goes into effect, I think we can follow up on the operational details, the implementation details. I think this is possible. I fully appreciate the constraints of the subcommittee and also realize how concerned members are. Now, sometimes the issues may not be dealt with even in 2017.
I understand that this is your well wish. It may not work. Now, whether this is dealt with at a panel or here at this subcommittee, I think the issue remains. And so, if I may, that I think the law is going to come into effect 1st of July, and the panel could convene a meeting and invite interested parties to come and to state their views, and then the environment, the panel on the environment would have a role here. I think this is what I am presenting before you, whether you will agree. Now, let me say, now I'm concerned about the enforcement. Now, now, how would you describe to us your daily routine so that the ships would honor the new legislation? For instance, I was referring to syringes found in our waters. I think prior to our next meeting, maybe members should submit a written statement to the Secretariat so that we would know exactly what we are dealing with. No, I'm not going to do any writing. I simply want to make a verbal statement. My concern is whether the cleaning up of our waters is the job of the Marine Department. I'm talking about the pollution in the waterbeds. Now, supplementary remark. Well, Madam Chair, you already have made your ruling. I'm happy with it. Referring to the third last paragraph. Now, there's a reference to daily routine duties and a reference to conducting special operations. Now, could you elaborate on that? And what have been the results? I hope that we would give assistance to our Secretariat concerning the groups that you know of which are interested, which have a concern on the cleaning up of our waters. Yes, I do know such a group, and that's why I'm concerned about the pollution in our waterbed. Well, for refuse which are generated on land, now then it is clear that that would not fall into that would not be covered by the concern of this subcommittee. So anyway, this is my ruling, and I'm thankful to officers from the Marine Department and from the government to attend this meeting. Thank you.